Hello, it's Mr.Westra here with Half Brother reading number 20. Just wanted to give you the heads up of where we've been. So last time, the show called 60 Minutes was at Ben's house recording Zan signing and talking about the project. They were there for 3 days and things went off without a hitch. Grade 9 has started, so Ben is in grade 9. The first couple of days of grade 9 have happened, and one day when Ben and David were at Ben's locker, a bunch of stuff tumbled out of Ben's locker, and out on the floor on the top of the pile was Ben's Project Jennifer logbook, and David saw a bit of it, and we're not sure what that's going to mean. So here we go. We're going to pick up on page 207. So, after he has lunch, Peter said, he usually likes some quiet time for an hour or so. You can read him a book or play with his dolls, nothing too rambunctious. It was the weekend, and I was in Zan's suite helping Peter train one of the new research students, Joyce Leonardon. Okay, she said, noting it in her binder. She was very organized. She had the same kind of haircut as Jennifer. Right, Ben? Peter was suddenly saying to me. Sorry, what? I said. Zan also likes watching the birds outside if it's nice. Oh yeah, he loves that. I'd been distracted all day, worrying about whether David would tell Jennifer about the logbook. I'd thought about calling him up and asking him, begging him, really, not to, but I was worried he'd still be too angry with me. I'd really blown it. Zan was walking around his playroom with us, holding Peter's hand. I noticed Peter's grip was good and tight. We'd had a lot of new students start in the past few weeks, and I thought Zan was getting tired of it. Sometimes, if he didn't like them, he'd really act up. Since we'd gotten rid of the learning chair, mostly his behavior had been excellent. But he was also getting bigger and stronger and, when he felt like it, more aggressive. He'd start tickling someone, and then his tickles would get too rough, or he'd grab hold of one of the students' leg and refuse to let go and just squeeze and squeeze. We'd had a couple of people quit after their very first shift with him. Luckily, Zan seemed to like Joyce. She was very calm, and that seemed to make Zan calm. Why don't you just sit down with us on the floor, Peter said to Joyce, and I'll read him a book and... Peter opened a book and read to Zan, but Zan took it from his hands and carried it over to Joyce. Wow, said Peter. He must really like you. Joyce smiled as Zan climbed into her lap. Book, Zan signed. Oh, that's the sign for book, right? Said Joyce. That's it, said Peter. Joyce started reading, pointing out all the pictures. If Zan knew the word, he'd sometimes sign to himself. Then he'd suddenly turn to Joyce and signed drink. What's that one? Joyce said. Drink, I said. Sweet drink, Zan signed at Joyce, who looked at me again for explanation. No, Zan, I said, signing back. No sweet drink. He had enough at lunch, I told Joyce. But Zan ignored me and kept signing only to Joyce. Sweet drink. Get drink. Me drink. And Joyce kept smiling kindly and looking a bit confused because she didn't know much ASL yet. Zan's signs got faster and sloppier, and I looked over at Peter, worried. Do you think he's getting a bit frustrated? I began, and then I heard Joyce cry out and saw Peter lunge at Zan. Joyce was holding him back with her hands, and Peter grabbed Zan under his arms and wrenched him away. No, Zan, said Peter. No! What happened? I asked, bewildered. He tried to bite her, Peter said, and then Zan twisted free of his grip and jumped up onto the table and shrieked at Joyce. Joyce, said Peter, go to the kitchen while we get him calmed down. Pale, Joyce stood up and left the playroom. Why'd he do that? I asked Peter. Maybe he felt insulted she didn't sign back. I don't know, said Peter. But we didn't have any more time to talk because Zan was having a nuclear temper tantrum now. He ripped off his shirt and his diaper. Zan, I said, signing. Stop! We chased after him in his bedroom, where he peed and pooed on the floor. Then he hurled himself back into the playroom and jumped up onto the kitchenette counter. He shrieked and hooted, and I wasn't sure if he was happy or furious. He grabbed hold of 2 cupboard handles and pulled. Luckily they were locked, but before we could get to him, he pulled so hard the doors ripped off their flimsy hinges. Zan flung them to the floor and swiped his hands into the cupboards, bringing down a cascade of glassware and dishes. Zan! I shouted, as he threw a glass at the wall. It was one of the first times I didn't understand him. I looked at him, having his temper tantrum, and thought, animal. On the Sunday night that the 60 Minutes piece was airing, the Godwins invited us to dinner so we could all watch it on their huge, wood-paneled color TV. I was pretty nervous about going over. It had been 2 weeks since the logbook incident. At school, David and I would nod and say hello as we passed in the hallways, but we weren't talking much yet. Had he told Jennifer? Maybe he hadn't even Maybe he hadn't even read anything. He hadn't had it in his hands that long. Maybe all he'd really seen was the cover. But what would Jennifer think if she knew I'd written an entire book about her? Would I be the mysterious man that made her feel admired and complimented? Would she be flattered, or just think I was a psychopath? There was another problem, too. I'd worried I'd made a mistake with Project Jennifer. I couldn't help noticing that the more distant I was with her, the more distant she seemed to be with me. I was starting to have doubts about how effective my current methods were. I'd have to reassess the data. It was David who opened the door when we arrived. "Hey, Tarzan," he said. He gave me a big smile and I felt such relief. He was still my friend. He wouldn't have told Jennifer. Mr. and Mrs. Godwin ushered us into the living room, where they uncorked a bottle of champagne. "Where's Jennifer?" Mum asked. Everyone else was there, even Harry Cal, with almost all his chest hair buttoned up inside his shirt. "She's a little under the weather," said Mrs. Godwin, giving Mum a significant look. Mum nodded sympathetically, but she said she'd come down for dinner. Was Jennifer sick? No one seemed that concerned. Or was she just hiding in her bedroom because she didn't want to see me? But a few minutes later she came downstairs. She looked fine to me, maybe a bit pale, which I thought made her look even sexier, like she'd been up all night, gazing out the window, listening to music, maybe thinking about me. "Hey," she said, "are you excited about seeing yourself on TV?" "I don't even know if I'll be in it yet. They shot a ton of stuff, but they said it was only going to be 10 minutes, so who knows?" I shrugged like I didn't really care, but I was figuring there'd be at least 1 or 2 shots of me. I'd never been on TV before, and this was international TV. I was hoping this would give me a big boost, maybe the final push I needed to complete Project Jennifer. Being on CBS was way better than being European. "Want to go downstairs?" David asked me before dinner. "Sure." I looked over at Jennifer, who was sitting on the Chesterfield with her mum. "I'll be down in a bit," she said to us. I was hoping we'd go down and blast some music. If I could get her alone, even for a few seconds, I was going to kiss her again. One of the other things I'd learned from the women's magazine was tips on kissing. I didn't think I was a total disaster. I'd never drooled on her or had bitten her, but I had a lot of room for improvement. 5 kisses to make your man swoon, the article promised. I really wanted to try them out.